Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Each week, our hosts will be interviewing local, regional, and national business leaders to give you an inside peek into how they lead their business to success in the ever-competitive business climate.
Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Today, I have a very special guest. His name is James Lee. James is the design and manufacturing lead at Benelli Windows and oversees all things nerdy, including design, development, manufacturing, production, equipment part procurement, and maintenance, and constant improvement. James has been in the fenestration industry in some capacity or another since finishing school in 2017, and has been named as an inventor on multiple patents. He has a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Arizona State University. James, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Peel back, we're happy to have you, obviously. Peel back the onion a little bit for us about your background. What got you into mechanical engineering and then ultimately to Benelli?
Definitely. So in 2013, I believe, I'm from the Chicago suburbs, so I transferred out to Arizona because I had some family and some friends out there. Kind of had the whole college experience, and transferred in as a fine art major. Quickly came to realize that I liked it, but I wasn't going to be successful at it. But I always knew I liked how things worked. So I had a few mental breakdowns and all right, I'm going to go to engineering. So 4 years later, I graduated, and while I was in school, I interned for a local window and door company. They were gracious enough to offer me a position out of school, and since then it's been windows and doors day and night, and I love it. It's a lot of fun.
What an interesting pivot from fine arts to engineering. I mean, honestly, that seems like it's very polar opposites. Were you an art major? I mean, were you big into art, like leading up to college? Is that where that came from? High school, sort of thing?
So my dad, growing up, was he was a professional sign painter. He would paint like the murals on sides of buildings, or like a car dealership if they're running a seasonal sale, whatever it may have been. Eventually, the economy took a turn, and he had to get a different job. So I kind of was raised with creatives, and my siblings are creative, and I knew early on that I had the bug, and I like to. I would take apart your Tonka toys, and so it was more so it was I like to know how things work, and I also like to see how I can improve them. And it's a blessing and a curse. So I initially thought I was going to go the art route, so I got really big into graphic design because it was something I could do with my limited resources, as far as I couldn't go out there and start buy a print shop and start doing serigraphy. So I got into that, and I took that through my community college, and then eventually, once I decided to transfer, I transferred in as a printmaking major, which is like relief prints, woodcuts, etchings, screen printing, and then realized I was good at it. Worked like that in college, but I realized that I had hit. I wouldn't say I was asymptotically approaching kind of like what I was going to do for the rest of my life, and I didn't think that I was going to. It was tailored for what I liked. So I made the choice there. It was either going to go industrial design or mechanical engineering, and I decided to go mechanical engineering because it was harder. And then I got to a point where I was like, I can't imagine going any other path, because math was never my strong suit. I mean, it was growing up. Then I took a few years off, and then I got back into it. I'm like, I can't imagine not knowing it. I'm very grateful for the route I took.
Yeah. And we're glad that you took that route, because now you're here talking to us. So one other thing about you, before I kind of want to start digging into Benelli a little bit about, the company, the windows you guys do, what you're doing there, is I noticed there's a note here about podcasts. You're a big podcast listener, and you're on one right now. What's your top 3 podcasts you're listening to every week?
So I do a lot of I think most of my podcasts are comedy podcasts. I do a lot of I do some like murder mystery ones, which it's kind of my guilty pleasure. So there's one on YouTube I watch called That Chapter. Big fan of. There's another one called Jim Can't Swim. It's like a criminal psychology breaking down kind of the body language behind interrogations. And then Rogan's a big one for me. And then I have a comedian named Tom Segura has a podcast called Your Mom's House that it's a good kind of silly laugh.
Thanks, Gene. Thanks, Gene.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm a mommy too. Yeah. I don't miss an episode. Poor Christina, she's all laid up right now. So
I know. Big fan. I'm a big fan of them.
I was hoping you would say that. Very, very cool, buddy. Tell us about Benelli. When you first got there, compared to where you're taking it now today, what are you doing to improve it? Tell us everything about Benelli, and maybe kind of peel back. If you know the history, we would love to hear some formation about that.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess I'll go from my perspective first, and I'll kind of give you the backstory on kind of what I was brought in to do, and kind of what I'm doing now. So I had left the industry after my first job out of school, and I was just working at an importer, someone who did a lot of like hotel bathrooms and stuff like that. It was kind of an interim job. I didn't see myself there very long, and then I was approached by my boss, Karen Wyatt, who's I'm very grateful. He said, "Hey, I have this opportunity. There's this company that was bought by Pella a few years back, and they want to move it to Mesa." And I'm like, "Yes." I'm like, "When do I start?" So since then, we've been my first few weeks, I was back and forth through San Francisco trying to learn how this business works, or how their business works. I was familiar with a much larger custom window and door company worked. So it was great to see kind of the contrast between what that is and where this was, and kind of how do I get the backbone of the jellyfish, if you will, to make it that. So what we're doing now is we're finally putting the finishing touches on a lot of the move. There's a lot of long lead time things like contractors and new office builds out and racks and a lot of things that I didn't consider as I came from a design background. I was never a steep learning curve, but I'm grateful that I went through it. So we're finally getting to that point where I can take a step back and let's focus on these new products. But Benelli's been around since the late 60s, mostly operating in the San Francisco area. They built kind of a personal relationship with a lot of the contractors. But what we're kind of tasked to do is still keep everyone there happy and excited about what Benelli's doing. So still keeping a presence in that San Francisco market, while also trying to tool up for growth for the rest of the country. So that's part of the challenge is logistically getting things back there, because they used to have like a landing zone there. Now I'm shipping 53-foot trailers there and trying to figure out how to navigate these tight San Francisco roads. Not a problem that I think that I was. If you brought me back 5 years and were like, "Hey, this is going to be something," I'd be like, "What are you talking about?" But I'm really excited for where it's been, or how I've gotten here. But I'm really excited about the next few years, because we're kind of revamping a lot of these new products and re-releasing things. And so it's kind of like a startup with training wheels, because I'm very grateful for the resources and the support that our parent company Pella's given us. Everybody there has been amazing. It's I got to pinch myself sometimes. It's like I'm put in this position to do this, and with the trust of all these very, very smart people. So it's super humbling. But yeah, I'm in the middle right now. Right now I'm about to go work on some more CNC programs for some of the new products we're designing. So I'm wearing a lot of hats. It's quite exciting. It's quite stressful, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah. You seem to be at the hub of everything, like you talked about, from the office move to logistics of getting products out there, and even down to the assembly line, it sounds like. So is it a complete move from the San Francisco over to Arizona?
So we still have a lot of our sales staff in San Francisco, and they're still doing a great job, and we're still trying to do the best that they can. And I kind of feel bad for them, because a lot of the people who were our production workers, our line workers, didn't, no fault of their own, didn't want to uproot their entire family. They've been there for 25 years to come down here and start essentially a new life, right? So it's been a lot of let's learn the current product, as well as let's say we can build it at the same level of quality that these contractors who've been using Benelli for the last 20-25 years have been used to doing. So that was quite the eye-opening experience about, like, okay, well, I have to learn this, as well as move the equipment, as well as releasing new products. So it's been a lot of pushing the rope uphill, but it's a challenge, and it's exciting.
Yeah. If you could point to maybe just a couple of those improvements that you guys are making I assume at least one of them has to do with energy efficiency. And then maybe is there another one related to like an ease of construction and installation, or even architecturally, aesthetically? Would love to hear about it.
Definitely. I actually have something to show. I can share my screen if it'll allow me to.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Let me.
I think you just have to click on the bottom button there, share screen.
Great.
And you should have access to that.
I do. Sorry, 1 second. I got to find which window I was looking for. Awesome.
There it is.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay.
Great. So a lot of what Benelli's done in the past has been they've been aluminum the entire way. What's unique about aluminum is that it'll allow you to get smaller section depth for similar strength profiles. So in some areas of the country where strength is an option or a requirement, we have to engineer that into it. So part of the challenge with designing these new products is that we have to foresee all of these configurations, all the ease of assembly, all of these things at the onset before we move to an extruder, which could be 12 weeks to 16-week lead time. So the profile that I have here was I kind of want to show to illustrate kind of what aluminum's done in the last 10, 15 years, and it's largely driven from a lot of the European innovation. There's a few European companies really pushed the design and the innovation on what I'm about to show you. But essentially, what we do is thermally broken aluminum windows and doors. So what the thermally broken means is there's these little teal, I think it's probably showing teal on your screen.
It is, yep.
The teal isobars or thermal struts, as we call them, that need to be crimped into these profiles, and it adds a level of complexity for the extruder and a level of complexity for us. But what they allow us to do is, I don't know if you've ever stand at a storefront, or like, I don't know, you name it, that when it's hitting the sun, aluminum's notoriously a very, very good conductor of heat. So that's why I use it for heat sinks and all that fun stuff. So you start to sweat because the aluminum just transfers that heat right inside. But what these do is they give you essentially a conduction break. So the energy you have to travel through that connection into the strut, which is like a glass filled nylon that isn't a good conductor of heat, and then conduct into there. And there's some areas of the country, like I know a lot of Southern California have certain energy codes, and they have, in the next 5 or 10 years, you have to meet these certain energy codes, or they won't even allow your product to be in there. So we have to kind of plan for the next 5 or 10 years where energy codes are going to go, as well as what architects are going to like, as far as sight lines, as far as configurations, as far as what are things that they think are important, and then kind of hopefully we get it right. And of course, it's a lot of with how fast we're running, it's a lot of circle back and tweak that, a lot of running changes, which provides it provides a nice challenge as far as for me from an engineering and documentation and control process. But what's cool about aluminum is you can design it such that you can have all those configurations and all of these options. So like what we're looking at here is a rail for one of our new hinge door. That's available on our website, and like this one will actually allow you to accommodate all the different glass options. So maybe STC is a requirement, or different impact things. Granted, we're not going off after impact, but that's essentially what you could do as far as the options you have to kind of build into these profiles. So it's a lot of front heavy work, and the more due diligence you do on the front end, the more kind of 3D checking and corner sections and stuff, the easier you make it for things on the back end when we're trying to build it. So we're learning a lot very quickly, and but it's exciting.
Yeah. And so on that note, I think that I'm gonna actually take back control here, sharing the screen a little bit, and then I want to pull up. So I went to, if everybody didn't already know, listen to the podcast, go to we'll do it the hard way here, pellaluxury.com/the firm. And then you can go in and check out Benelli. So what James is speaking about architecturally is, I think we're always architects, especially myself, even when it comes down to college, when we were designing in college at a very elementary and cursory level, we want thin lines. We want a very modern kind of look typically. And that's exactly what this kind of Benelli will do for you. But you don't have the thermal breaks like we're talking about with traditional storefront aluminum. So really, it's the best of the both worlds is from what I'm understanding, from an energy standpoint plus a look standpoint. And you can just browse through these and take a look at them. And they're exactly what I'm describing here. Super thin, clean, beautiful lines, but you still are matched with that energy efficiency that we all want to achieve. We all love the environment, and there's nobody on earth who wants a crap environment, and we all want to save money at the end of the day, right? Green is always, kind of dictating that. So super helpful. That was great, James.
Thanks. Yeah. So that's what's kind of cool about aluminum. I think it kind of got a bad rap before this new technology kind of came out and was on the market now. It's having a resurgence, especially in where we see in our Southwest kind of bread and butter market. It's a lot of it's super flexible material. You can powder coat it, you can analyze any color you like. It's robust. It just doesn't. It presents a little more challenges as opposed to like wood. So if we mess up a hole, wood, I can just put a dowel pin in there, some wood glue, and re-drill it.
Yeah.
But with aluminum, it's an 8 to 10 week change, and you got to figure out what to do with the rest of that stock. So it's a unique challenge. So that's why all the front end work is so important, especially with aluminum. But I think it's overall the finish and the aesthetic of like the matte black aluminum or the clear satin aluminum is unmatched. But maybe I'm biased. I'm definitely biased.
That's all right. I like your biasy, 100%. So one of the thing when it comes to the Benelli windows, and it looks like, are they the same in the sense of aluminum storefront where they're direct set? And for everybody listening who doesn't know what that is, basically there's two kinds of ways to install a window. One is you have these nail fins in the outside, and then you put the window in the opening, and then you're nailing to the wall, right? And then if they're sort of aluminum storefront, those are called typically direct set. So they get set inside the opening and then attached with either some kind of strapping, but there's no nail fin. How does Benelli get installed?
So we understand that architects want to have both. So we have this a slide-in T-slot attached nail fin that if you want the nail fin options, we can do that, and if you want the direct set, we can do that as well. So that's another part of the flexibility that we have to kind of consider at the front end. So all of the new products that we are working on right now, I mean, with the exception of some of our certain door products, we'll have both options.
Very cool. Good. So really, you guys can match whatever aesthetic we're going for, whether it's that sort of the profile where we see it from the outside versus it's inset, super clean, trying to minimize those sort of lines and everything like that.
So we're actually in the middle of building out our new office, and it's kind of a hybrid showroom type workspace, and that's kind of exactly what we're doing right now. So I get the opportunity to be the architect, and okay, I think this should flush out with here because of this and the aesthetics, and this is how it's when it works. So I'm putting on the different cap again to do it. So it's really exciting and really cool. But it's the flexibility that we've designed into it is we're able to compete and match anything in the market.
Yeah, it definitely looks like it for sure. Any other brand names, we won't mention them because they don't need any publicity, but all the way. Well, describe your perfect working environment. Describe like what is a perfect way an architect, designer, even a homeowner would come to you guys. Where at in the process should they be starting to speak with you guys? Early on, middle, towards the end? Does it matter? Unpack that for us.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've kind of largely been disconnected from that process. Being, I would see sort of the only things that would make it to me would be kind of strength requirements or STC requirements or thermal requirements or some oddball configuration, some crazy shape that has a wild bend in it that we need to make sure we can do. But I think it's always best to loop us in as early in the process as possible, because we might have recommendations. Hey, maybe you should try this with that, or this isn't going to work for X, Y, and Z. So it's I personally I like to get everything out there at the onset, and then we'll iterate through, and you usually come up with a better solution. So that's the way that I do it, but I'm largely disconnected from the front end, and that's kind of on purpose.
Yeah. You're getting the nuts and bolts done and all the logistics and making sure that the windows can actually happen. My suggestion to anybody would be as early as in the process as you can. and that way they could leverage your guys' flexibility in the product you've designed. It seems like to its ultimate end, which would be something beautiful. At the same time, it's fully functional and kind of gets everything all in one package, sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. We have a team of super talented estimators and drafters that will be able to kind of give you our best options. Like, hey, this is what we think is going to work, but these are what the trade-offs you're going to have. So if you have elevations or takeoffs with ROs and this is what I think I want, that's never too early to get in contact with our sales staff or our estimating team.
100%. Yeah. I see also here that you're an avid inventor. You're a lifelong learner. Obviously, you have to be at this point if you're an inventor. If you could, what are some inventions you're most proud of? And maybe you don't have to get specific. I understand there's always patents involved. And then if there's a few books that you'd like to recommend to people like yourself or people that are listening to this podcast.
Yeah. So the patents that I have are currently owned by my previous employer. I'm still listed on them, but they're for fenestration products. So it's a lot of small novel things. And one thing about the fenestration industry is, and you probably know this better than anybody, is that it's rectangles with glass in them. It's people have figured out usually the best way to do it. So when you have a novel thing, it's like, okay, let's nail that down. And that's kind of the perspective that my previous employer had taken. And it was it's not necessarily it's super novel in the industry. I'm sure people have done it, but it was a lot of strategy things from there. As far as books I'd recommend, Tim Ferriss has got a good book called Tools of the Business. I don't know if you're familiar, but I'm a fan of his work. But I read a lot of nonfiction. There's a book that I read recently called The Universe in the Review Mirror. Kind of talks about like the theory of relativity and what it means and how it kind of affects you, and kind of trying to explain that in certain ways. And a lot of not necessarily like the entrepreneurial or like kind of like self-help books, but it's more so like I want to read something nerdy. I want to read about someone who's really gone deep on a topic and like can really, and so you can kind of get the synopsis of all of their work. So it's like learning from others' mistakes or their mistakes they didn't make. They're all research. So I'm a big fan of learning efficiently.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like I like that you it seems like you have your feet in two worlds at once, which is really great, James. And maybe it comes from the fact that you were going to go into fine arts and now you're in this very heavy mechanical engineering field where it's numbers and logistics and all of that. So maybe you're even goes back to your podcast you're listening to, right? Some super silly, funny ones. And then also some ones that are kind of technical when it comes to like the murder mystery or whatever. So you talked about mistakes. Knowing what you know now, and if you could go back in time when you first started your engineering career, what is one piece of advice you would give yourself?
I've learned in school they kind of make it seem like, okay, everything's you have to triple check everything, but before you do it, so because everything's costly at the back end, which is totally true. What they don't prepare you for is how the different priorities align. So you might have to make a shortcut here to circle back because we need this for this date or whatever it may be, without getting too specific. But I would say don't be so hard on yourself. But at the same token, the reason I'm so hard on myself is the reason that I'm in the position. So it's like I wouldn't change or give myself any advice other than like keep your head up. Like this is just what it is. Learning now, I guess I'm not jaded, but like kind of no longer as green as I once was to the industry. I kind of see how the sausage is made, if you will. So I'm very grateful for that experience. But I'm the type of person who kind of learns the hard way. It's like I have to mess something up, or I have to go through that and freak myself out for me to really cement that into me.
Yeah, maybe don't dwell on the mistakes, right? Like you're going to make them. Don't dwell on it. Don't be so hard on yourself. Move on, plow ahead, learn from them. I think everybody can obviously benefit from something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's not necessarily just like a work thing. I mean, that's in life too. Like you want to look back and be able to see what you've done wrong, but you don't want to dwell there. And that's kind of the mindset I try to adopt. But it's not the easiest always.
Yeah. Very cool, James. This has been a pleasure speaking with you, learning about Benelli in a little bit more detail, seeing just how flexible the system is, while at the same time so aesthetically beautiful and functional in terms of energy with that thermal break. Beautiful stuff. Where can people follow you, and obviously the windows?
You can find me on Instagram, or mostly on Instagram. It's SUPIMFATJJ. It's not and then you can get in contact with us through any of the Pelopedia sends, or our website directly. I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
This podcast I've ever been on. This has been great.
Very cool. All right. Thanks. Take care, James. Appreciate your time today.
Take care. Thank you.